Welcome to AILTV and welcome to For You to TV live magazine show. Our host, Sonja Kamara, you are on.
Welcome to For You to TV, the show that sees communities, and we're very proud today that we're going to be highlighting men. Considering the role of the man has changed dramatically, the new man is there, and this new man has got a certain look, and I'm very proud to have some guests today, including Charlie, Ken, and Javonte. Is it Javonte? Make sure I got that right. Javonte, who are going to be sharing their stories with me, and they're all part of The Men in Me. Welcome to the show. The Man and Me. Is that, I got it right? The Man in Me.
The Man in Me.
The Man in Me. Okay, the Man in Me. Okay, welcome young men to the show. And it's wonderful because we've got a great age groups, different eras, and we are very interested to talk to all of you about how you see men being perceived in this day and age. So, Ken, let me start with you. We've got an interesting background. Ken Hines, you're Haringey Stop and Search, you're a community activist. We have got with us young Javonte, and Javonte is also a young community activist. And we have Charlie. And Charlie, I understand you're a creative, you're a cameraman, an editor, and you all work together supporting men emotionally. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. So can I start with you? Because I know that you've a part and parcel as one of the organisers as The Man in Me, and it's an organisation where you present an opportunity for men to come together to share and explore emotional self. So what does the emotional man look like in the 21st century? Let me start with Ken.
Yeah, the emotional man looks like a person who is far too busy on his physical self and neglecting his emotional development. It simply means that we do not give enough time to look at ourselves, our deeper self, to checking in with our deeper emotional self to see where we are and what is it that we may be struggling with.
Okay, so we know that men have difficulties, like a simple thing like men going to the doctors if they're not feeling well. We know that can be a challenge. We know traditionally men are seen as the protectors, as the providers, and which is itself is quite a challenge in this day and age. And also, men face a lot of issues such as long-term unemployment, sometimes, not all, sometimes long-term unemployment, the perception about that you're meant to be the macho man, and it's not really deemed to be showing strength in character if you are in touch with your emotional self. So someone like Marcus Rashford this week, who has quite rightly shared his experience of growing up in poverty and used that as a platform to help other families, is he showing strength or weakness? What do you think, Javonte, as a young person?
Him talking about poverty.
Yeah, him explaining that he comes from a very poor background and actually campaigning the government to support families from poverty.
It shows strength because he's talking about something that's actually kind of a sensitive topic about him being, I'm guessing, homeless because he was in poverty.
No, he's not homeless. He's a famous footballer.
Oh, okay, so just okay.
So he's a famous footballer, and he Manchester United. Yeah, and he recently has been supporting through COVID-19. He's been supporting families that are living in poverty. And one of his campaigns is to keep the school meal vouchers going for low-income families, because himself grew up with a single mother in a low-income family. And he's raised over £20 million, but he's appealed to the government to keep the scheme going, and they've now reversed it. But he's shared his experience of growing up in poverty. And I just wondered, you know, if we saw that as a strength or a weakness as a young black man.
I find it as a strength. Not many people can do that and be in a position to be able to do that. So that him putting that together to help other people, I find that as a very big thing. because something like that can help so much people. 'Cause there's so many people out there that can't get a meal for their children and stuff like that. So that's probably helping so many people out there.
Yeah, it's helping a lot of people. What do you think, Charlie? Because you're actually a man in the media yourself. So tell us about what are your thoughts on that? Just on the Marcus Rashford.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing for him to do, to speak out, especially. I mean, I've been in a lot of interviews with footballers, and I've edited a lot of footballer interviews, and a lot of it is obviously talking about the game, but a lot of it's kind of, it's kind of servicing the machine, because football it generates a lot of money. And when you come out, especially as he did, challenging the government, not a lot of public figures, and especially footballers, get to that point, and that is a real strength. But to get to that strength, he showed his not vulnerabilities, but he showed that the way that he grew up wasn't perfect, and a lot of people live in this country in conditions that just shouldn't exist in the 21st century, and him speaking about that is really important. It's a really important step.
Definitely, it highlights it. And I'm interested because the Man in Me, your platform, your program that you have is an inclusive program for men, and you talk about are you where you should be, and what do you want to be in yourself. So I think that's a really interesting statement, Ken, and I would like you to tell us a little bit more about men that join your group. What are they seeking?
I think what they're seeking greater, deeper understanding, because we're as I said, we're taught about our physical self, but what we aren't taught about is recognizing how we manufacture things in our heads. So whatever we put in our heads stays in our heads, and generally many of us have suffered childhood trauma that we have not really weren't able to deal with at the time because we were a child. We couldn't understand it, but we harbor that, which has actually made me into who I am. Some of the steps I've made, but I also had safety mechanism. So I couldn't show as a man growing up in Tottenham, I couldn't show my vulnerability.
You couldn't show your vulnerability.
I couldn't. That'd be weakness.
So when you say your vulnerability, are you talking about your emotional side, your loving, your tender, your nurturing side?
All those things, crying, being forgiving, for not wanting, for loving, these sort of things. It's my vulnerable self. So, but it's helped. It added to my mistakes in life.
Okay, but you've identified that's a trait, and you've done something to rectify that, because part and parcel of the Man in Me, the group actually talks about Bell Hook, a Black American author, professor, feminist, and social activist, that said the first act of violence that patriarchal male system, social system demands of males is not violence towards women. Instead, it's about the demands of all males that engage in acts of physical self-mutilation. So are you saying really the way that the man's perceived in some ways is a self-destructive profile?
Yes, it is. And because as simple it is that we are part of this so-called game. I would say it's a bigger game that's there that I don't understand why, but I see the effect on people like myself who now, as an elder, want to make the youngers aware that these challenges they will face, and hopefully they can push it forward a lot earlier to build up their emotional resilience that leads to greater emotional intelligence.
Okay, so with that in mind, Charlie, let's just talk about the provider, and also all the men really. But I'm just saying, as a provider, so as a man living in the 21st century, do you still believe that you should be deemed, and that goes for all of you actually, as the providers for a household? How important is that to all of you to be the provider in your household?
Yeah, it's important to me personally, but it depends on your relationship. You know, there's things have, you say in the 21st century, things have changed a lot since last century when it was always the man. But now there's opportunities, a lot more equal opportunities for women in work, and it's dependent on your household and and your relationship with your partner, and how you want to both go through life.
So would you say it's so? Would it matter to you, as an example, not only to you, I'd ask Devontae and Ken, how important would it be to you if your partner earned more than you, was in a higher role than you, had a higher social status? Would that impact? Would that make you less of a man, or what? How do you feel about that?
As a black man growing up to be and being told to be the provider, I've had to come to terms with women that I've been having an association with, who was earning much more than me, and it's like I was still there on the production line. So then I realized that if I weren't able to adapt myself to help support my partner, then things can never work because too much envy. So I had to be the house husband, the house
You
partner.
had to be, okay. Was that a choice you made? But how did that make you feel?
Because it made me feel worthy, in a sense that I could support my queen, and it's not a jealousy thing. Because before, I would have felt that it had to be man, but no, it's that who's ever doing the most productive thing in my space, then you know what, I'm down with that.
So the best person for the job. That's what we're saying.
Absolutely.
Okay. So Javonte, I want to ask you, because it's all about you as a young person and being part of the man in me, and I know that you get support from both Charlie and Ken. So how do you feel? What's the perception for you as a young man, a young teenager growing up now? Do you still believe that the man should be the provider? What's your prospects on this?
I feel in this day and age, like, women have they have so many opportunities now. There's so much more than they did before. That a woman can have the same job as you, or even higher than you. So let's say I have a relationship with someone and we have a house, and my partner earns more money than me. I personally wouldn't have a problem with that, because as Charlie said, it depends on your relationship. If your partner is okay with you earning lower or you earning higher than her, then you can work it out, because you're obviously going to talk about it. But I feel like some people don't agree with it because they don't talk to their partner, or if they don't have a partner, it's the way they've been brought up. So if I've been brought up around a family that doesn't agree with that stuff, I would probably end up not agreeing with that kind of stuff. That's what I feel like.
Okay, so we know that there's a lot of talk, and it's been going on for the single mum bringing up children. So what are your views that the mother can be the father as well in the household? Because there is a view where men say, for something like Father's Day, they would say to their child, if it's not all, but that they could be a negative thing because the father's not in the home. So do we believe that mother can be father as well? What do you think? As a young person.
Yeah, I grew up with a single mum. So I do have a dad, but the thing is, obviously there was arguments, so we wasn't allowed to stay together. They weren't allowed to stay together. But I grew up with my mum, and I have four sisters, and we grew up like that. And even though I grew up with a single mum and a lot of sisters, I would come out probably thinking a different way. But I still feel like I think a smart way towards this kind of stuff we're talking about. Like,
it's important to you. Do you think the fact you've got your mother and your sisters, you've been nurtured enough to be?
She's given me the opportunity to come with all the intelligence I have right now. So I feel like, a mother can do the job, like, by herself. Like, I'm not saying, okay, mom, just go by yourself. But if she is in that position, she can do the job just as fine as a man could. I feel like
give
because
you what a father would give you. Do you think it would be the same?
Well, obviously, I don't think it'll be the same. I feel like there'll be obviously different. You'll come out differently, such as your views, because obviously your mum will look at different stuff. Your mum will look at something differently to your dad, or that's just because we're male to female, so we'll have different views on stuff.
Okay.
But I feel like you will obviously come out in a different view, but in intelligence wise and like
emotional intelligence.
Yeah. I feel like depending on your parents, you will come out just fine. Like I've come out just fine. I feel
exactly. So what do you think about that, Charlie? Hold on, Ken. Charlie, what do you think? Ken, Charlie?
Yes, yeah. Of course, you know, a single mother can be a great parent and do both jobs, but obviously it is different because well, I grew up with both parents, and with my mother, I got it was a lot more sort of like emotional upbringing. And I got a lot of the stories of her family and her background and that sort of thing. But my dad was he was there. He was more there like as a as support. But it was my mother who kind of gave me the sort of like emotional upbringing.
So your father was there more to support. Not emotionally, you'd get that from your mum, the nurturing side, but your father would be there more to support with life, living, moving you into the world for other things like career, but not emotionally.
Yeah.
Okay, and how important, Ken, do you think that is, where we're having the father figure? You know, is that essential? Because we have Javonte saying you've got the love, etc. It's given him another softer side to his personality that he probably would not have, because we know men are not taught to cry. It's a weakness. Hugging and kissing, you know, is something as well that could be off limits. But what do you think, Ken? How important is it for a man to be nurturing their children in an emotional way?
I think it's essential to give it balance, to give it drive, to give it purpose. No disrespect to my queen, yes, just like I can do the values of a mother. The mother, it takes both to work together in that regard. But the man input is essential in the sense that as you grow, you will realize that yes, you may have been grown in a bubble, but there's some things that's not parts of it that you're going to have to go out there and further develop. Don't get me wrong, there can be people like ourselves, mentors, who can give that rounding that he may be missing from the mother, with the balance that is required. But it is absolutely essential that any boy, any man, has a man influence in his life, for good or for bad. Even though his father may not have been there, and there may be issues around relationships, like I've been through. I spent 6 years going through court. But you know what? My son is now 28, and he says he valued the effort I put in.
As a father?
As a father.
Okay.
And so I'm saying that aspect of it is important. We need both.
It's essential we have both. So part of the man in me, one of the mission statements, you say a mission and purpose is simple, and I like this, to create a space for men to share whatever they want in a non-judgmental way. That is. And then you talk about leadership, roles at home, which we've discussed, community and work, working on accountability and commitment to yourself and others, and reflecting on the pain you carry and what you may inflict on others. So I wanted to talk about how men can nurture, how the group men are nurturing men, and what are you getting out of it? So, because let's say Charlie and Ken, you're mentoring young Javonte, what do you get out of it as a man? Charlie?
Well, you get all of it's a learning process, you know. So as you, I personally haven't done any mentoring yet. I'm still doing the training, but from what I can see and what I can gather, all of it's an emotional process that for me didn't start until later in life. As a man, you talk about certain things like down the pub, and you get advice from older guys, but you don't sit around and talk about your feelings in a non-judgmental way. Everything is like loaded with judgment. So once you go through that process and like open up those avenues, and then do mentor training and start to mentor, you're still learning about yourself every day, and you can pass on your philosophies and what you've learned. But the mentoring's also learning of each other and guiding as best you can. Yes.
That's wonderful. So Ken, as Charlie just said, he's going through the training right now, and Charlie made the point. When men are together, you're not talking about how you're feeling, and sometimes you can be feeling low, lonely, unhappy, sad, in love, all of these things. But what is it that you get out of helping young people like Javonte as part and parcel of the man in me?
I get blessings. I get to grow my emotional intelligence. I get to actually challenge myself to change my position that I may have held yesterday. Going forward has given me a more rounded way and of looking at others. And what I also learned is not to take things personal.
Okay.
And not to make it personal, and understand, and I get to understand that we all carrying trauma, but some of us and we may project it onto others, and it's just to make the young man aware that this is what's happening, see how they're projecting, and how I'm able to really embrace it
And share it genuinely.
and welcome it.
Welcome it. And Javonte, what is it for you? What are you gaining and learning from from individuals in your group, or men sharing their life experiences? What are you learning?
What I gain from this is knowledge. So like when I first joined, I had a Zoom call and I joined and I just listened, and I was listening to everyone's views. They were talking about the first one I joined was everyone was talking about their past. So everyone was talking about if they've experienced police like brutality and stuff like that in their past. So I was listening, and I was listening to these like different stories, and then I thought the first lesson I didn't say anything, and I thought, okay, on the second lesson I can actually talk about something, because no one like judged anyone. Depending, like the stories were deep and no one even said anything. They just like were super supportive. So I said, okay, in the second one I'll talk about something. And when I did, I got the same feedback. Like there was understanding and everything. So I was like, cool. And then I gained knowledge. So when I'm with Ken and we go out, we went out to the protest, he will tell me stuff, and he'll like tell me a couple stuff about it, because he's been to a lot of protests. So then he was telling me how to deal with it, how to like stay safe and stuff. And it's just like he was teaching me like common knowledge and stuff like that. So that's why I've stayed on board. If I didn't, I would have left already.
So that's really helped you. So it's really a platform where you can be yourself. I mean, what you're all describing, Ken, Charlie, Javonte, it's really a platform where men can be men and not feel vulnerable. In fact, if you do feel vulnerable, you've got support in the group, and that is gold dust, to be perfectly honest. So, guys, we've only got a few minutes left, but I just wanted to quickly ask you all, moving forward, on Monday the 20th of June is going to be Windrush Day, and people, as we all know, the Windrush stories have been something that have been promoted all over the globe, especially in the UK, when we've had this challenge of the injustice that's been pressed upon the Windrush community. And I wanted to ask, I know everyone's standing up saying Black Lives Matter, this matter, but we also know the elders, they matter as well, especially the group that have made this contribution. So I wanted to find out what everyone's going to be doing for Windrush Day. Anything planned? Ken?
Yeah, personally, I'm well aware of the Windrush Day. I haven't got anything planned, but I'll probably be jumping on one of the platforms that's going to be recognizing where we are on Windrush, because I've dealt with several of the young men, not young men, the older men that got, affected by having a British visa, British citizenship, revoked, and they had to spend time back in the Caribbean before they let me intervene. 13, 14 years later, I've come back. So I'm going to be marking that because it's now meaning something deeper to me. Black Lives Matter.
Exactly. And what about you, Charlie? Anything planned for Windrush Day?
I will be going to a demonstration or a protest if there is one arranged. Because I think still the reparations that were promised have not been made. So there's still work to be done, and I know that the cabinet secretary had to resign over it, and there were apologies to be made. But the real reparation and damage done to people's lives is emotionally, it's probably irreparable.
Exactly. What about you? Anything planned?
Depending on if Ken wants me to come along or Charlie wants me to come along, I'll be going with them to a demonstration or so. And if they need me, I'll come onto one of the platforms, depending on what we'll do, and we'll have a talk on there. We'll probably have some people on there, and we'll have a talk about it and stuff like that. That's what I have planned. Like, not planned, but if something comes up, I'll be there.
Sonia,
yes,
please, and I'm going to use that time to highlight the injustice done to these men who still yet to get financially compensated.
Or recognition. Compensation, recognition, it's a whole list of injustice.
Whole bang before they go, because some of them are not in good health. And definitely. I'm going to be pushing that from my heart. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, guys, well, you know what? I've come to the end of the show, and I have to thank all of you for such a honest conversation, because it's really brilliant that men can share your emotional intelligence, your nurturing, your love. And it is all about Father's Day on Sunday. So we are going to celebrate you. We want you to know that we value you all. And we really want to be able to support you, whatever your endeavours are, emotionally, financially, physically, because it is important in these times, unparalleled times, let me say, that men are noticed, not just as the big chest person, as people that are human beings that need to be loved and hugged and kissed like all of us. And that's all in respecting social distancing as well. All right, before I get told off for that. But thank you so much for being part of the For You Two show. I hope you've enjoyed yourselves, and we look forward to catching up with you again. Whatever you do, have a great time, but more importantly, take care.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.